Thank you all very much. I guess we're having a bit of a birthday party, but even though it's the 40th anniversary event, really it goes back to about '83 when the program was restructured in a way that it all flowed through economic development. And coincidentally, that's when I came on the scene, 1983. This is an example of your, none of this is free lunch. This is an example of your tax dollars that come back and actually tangibly help the very people that are paying the taxes and then some. This is about the, one of the few ways to be able to help smaller communities with such things as economic development, such things as infrastructure development, improving the quality of life. And so the community development block grants that I guess exceed $700 million in Arkansas since '83 reflect all sorts of different projects that go to small communities that otherwise would not have been able to be able to afford it. They don't have the tax base for it. Whether it's an improved sewer system in some small town in eastern Arkansas that has 800 people or 1,000 people in it with no tax base to be able to update the sewer systems, or whether it's an economic development plant that creates edamame for the first time in the state of Arkansas. It is the type of actual redistribution of your tax dollars into specific projects that help people in communities, and particularly in smaller communities that otherwise would not have the ability to be able to do that. So it's kind of a happy birthday celebration and acknowledgement of some a program that spends your tax dollars in ways that really do benefit people. And with further information, Grant Tennille, head of AEDC.
Thanks, Governor.
Oh,
yes, sir, I do.
I already told them all the importance.
You did. Well, except for this. Wanda Merritt, who is the local HUD representative, is with us today. So thank you, Wanda, for being here. And as the governor said, we use CDBG money for a lot of different things. But from my perspective, one of the most important is economic development projects. We have distributed this money, again, to smaller communities in the state to create jobs and to give mostly small business people the opportunity to grow. And we have got one of those companies and one of those communities with us here today. And I would like, if I could, very quickly to introduce the Mayor of Mulberry, Gary Baxter, and Mr. Raymond Chung, who is the president of American Vegetable, Soybean, and Edamame. So please, come up and tell everybody about the project.
Thank you. Well, we're delighted to be here today, and the Community Development Block Grant has made a huge impact in Mulberry. Mulberry is a small community, but we're in a great location. And Governor, I remember when we first talked about this, I said that you'd be one of the few governors who could say that we're actually bringing jobs from China to Arkansas to produce a product to send back to China, and that's a reality because we are importing edamame and crunchmame from Mulberry, Arkansas, back in to Asian area, and Gene Chung's going to be telling you all about that, or Ray Chung, Gene's dad. And one of the things that when Dr. Gene Chung, Ray's dad, come and talk to us about Mulberry, he asked me one question right at the first there, Governor. He said, do y'all have containerized shipping? Well, I have to, every time I get an opportunity, I have to say, you know, we're in one of the best locations in the United States for a small community, Interstate 40 connecting the East Coast to West Coast, I-49, Canada to the Gulf Coast, and we've got great railroad systems. And when we get that river just right, then we'll have containerized shipping to put something on a container and ship it anywhere in the world, or receiving something from anywhere in the world. So Arkansas can become really a great area for warehousing and for distribution. But it all starts with a program like community development grant funds. And we're so thankful that governor and the AEDC has chosen to help make Mulberry a great place in all of Arkansas River Valley for growing this wonderful product that is very healthy. Edamame and Crunchimame is one of the few things that can be classified both as a protein and as a vegetable. And the product, like I say, has been shipped all over the world, especially in Asia, but it all is related to the funding that we get. So thank you very much. Thank you, Governor. Thank you, AEDC, for what you've done. And Ray Chung, president of AVS, is here. And Ray, tell them a lot about edamame.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Gary. How many of y'all are familiar with edamame, just out of curiosity? I love it, yeah.
My wife is addicted.
Oh, wow, that's great. Fantastic. Can I get that in a quote? No, I'm just kidding. Every time I go out and talk about edamame, it really it makes me feel very happy that more and more people are appreciating what it is, what a great food it is. As Gary was saying, it's a high protein food, and as people try to eat a little bit healthier in this country, we hope to be able to sell a lot more of it to them. And I always get asked the question by people when I go around the country, talking about Arkansas grown edamame, and they always ask me, well, why did you do it in Arkansas? Why Mulberry? And really, the answer to that question is because Arkansas has put together an ecosystem that makes this possible, right? So we had, at the very beginning, contact with a researcher over at the University of Arkansas, Dr. Chen, who had been developing edamame varieties for years and years. We talked with the university for a while, and eventually we realized that, the missing piece was we had to build a facility here to actually process the edamame. And that's where the AEDC came in, the governor, and also with the CDBG funds, we were able to get everything together, and in an amazingly short amount of time. My father, Dr. Chung, was around at the very beginning. I've kind of stepped into the role of taking care of the business for him, but everything, all the stories that I heard about the very beginning, the setup of the process, I'm really amazed. I think everything was done in about 6 months, pretty much from start to finish, the funding and the actual completion of the plant. I really can't think of really any other state in the country where things would have happened so efficiently and smoothly. So we're all very, very thankful and grateful to be here, and we have a huge opportunity ahead of us to make Arkansas into the state that is known not just for rice and for corn and soybeans and everything else, but also for edamame. And I wanted to thank everybody here, and the governor and all the AEDC and folks, and also the mayor of Mulberry too as well, who really made this whole thing possible as well. And he's been a huge champion for us as well, and a great salesperson too as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, as the governor pointed out, we do lots of different things with CDBG funds, including helping a small community tell a story important to both Arkansas's history and the nation's history. And so I would love for Jack May, the mayor of McGee, to come up and talk to us a little bit about the CDBG project that led to the McGee Relocation Museum. Mayor? Thank you.
Thank you for having me today, and I appreciate the opportunity. We're always looking forward to an opportunity to talk about McGee and about this specific item. After the attack on Pearl Harbor in December of 1941 and the start of World War II, there was about 120,000 Japanese Americans living in the nation, mostly on the West Coast. 68% of those folks were American citizens. 32% of them were not American citizens because the government would not allow them to apply for citizenship. There was great apprehension after the start of the war on the West Coast and in Congress about the possibility of attacks by the Japanese Americans against the effort, the war effort. President Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066 establishing the War Relocation Authority, and that was to pull the Japanese Americans, 120,000 of them, in to assembly areas and then push them out into 10 permanent camps across the nation. We had 2 in southeast Arkansas, the Rower and the Jerome camp. In the summer of 1942, there were over 8,000 Japanese Americans placed into each one of those camps. At that time, that made those 2 camps the 5th and 6th largest city in Arkansas. And McGee, we've had for years a desire to establish a museum so we could tell the story of this injustice, a story that had long been denied in American history. In December 2009, the Delta Cultural Center in Helena, West Helena, offered a loan of an exhibit to be used in McGee. The name of that loan was Against Their Will, and to house that in McGee, and it had been funded by the Rockefeller Foundation to the tune of $2 million to build it. We immediately began to apply for grants to fund the and remodel our old train station, McGee. One of the first grants that we made application for and was approved for was a community development block grant. We were awarded $219,000. In April of 2013, after remodeling and placing an exhibit, we were able to open our museum. Our desire to have this museum was to tell the nation the story of some very good and patriotic people and the denial of their civil rights and their years in those camps, with hopes that that would never occur in our nation again. During the past year, since the opening 16th of April last year, we've had 2,355 visitors into the museum. They were from 3 nations, 45 states, and 98 cities in Arkansas. Now that's what you call economic development for a small city. We were just overwhelmed with the response to that. Our thanks goes to our governor, Governor Beebe, and to Robert Moore. He's the guy that's always wanting more money out of you.
He steals every dime he can for Southeast Arkansas.
and he had helped us on some other grants besides that. And we also give our thanks to the AEDC staff for their support in this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And finally, to talk about how CDBG funds are used to help communities address needs among their most needy populations. We've got Sherry King, the Executive Director of the Mississippi County Union Rescue Mission. So, Sherry.
Just like to say first off, thank you very much. I've been a shelter director for 11 years, and when I first started at the mission, it was 1998, and all that were evident in our community that needed shelter were men. About 2001, we started having more requests for shelter from women, and we didn't have the facilities to serve them. So we were taking them to other shelters in Arkansas. We do have and have had a domestic violence shelter for quite some time, but they could only hold so many. And I would ask our mayor and our county judge, what can we do? You know, we just can't keep doing this, and there's no place for them to go. And they sent me to our own development people in Blyville, and they hooked us up with Basil. and Mr. Julian has been a godsend to us. We applied for the grant in 2007 and received it in 2008. And since 2009, we have housed 259 women, 109 children, and numerous men, but we're counting the women and the children today. And some of them have gone on to their own homes before we had the rehousing program. That has helped us enormously. But they've gone on to the community colleges. Whatever their needs have been, we have found ways to meet them. And we have had over 60 successful mothers and their children, families leaving and gone on to be productive citizens. Thank you.
And I want to thank Ms. King for acknowledging Basil Julian and his team. Basil has been running the CDBG program for how long? 18 years. And
He's quitting when I do.
there you go. His team has what is probably one of the best jobs in the state of Arkansas and one of the most difficult, because they're the ones who receive all of the requests from communities who have worthwhile projects and worthy things that need to be done. And that team helps them to craft those ideas into projects that can be funded and make sure that the funding is distributed fairly and legally around the state. So Basil and everyone on Basil's team, thank you for everything that you do. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the governor for any questions.
Anybody got any? Okay, well, you got some colleagues over here that just don't want to sit with you.
Can you talk a little bit about the tension in deciding, you have three different distinct types of projects, how to choose between economic development and social?
Well, it's actually, there are even more than those three, because what wasn't mentioned were some of the water and sewer projects and some of the other things that inevitably help increase the infrastructure in some small communities that don't have the ability to do it. I can't tell you the in-depth prioritization. We'll get Basil up here, can tell you the in-depth prioritization that occurs. Usually, from my standpoint, you try not to keep rewarding the same places over and over, and make sure that it's distributed geographically and fairly in a way that somebody doesn't get too many bites at the apple to the exclusion of others. But beyond that, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I would just tell you that, excuse me, Governor. I would tell you that all of our programs, there are 4 HUD-funded programs: the Emergency Shelter Grant Program for homelessness, the HOPWA program for persons with AIDS, the home program for housing, and then our CDBG program. All of those have to be put together in a 5-year strategic plan that addresses all the priorities of the state. So that's how we go about deciding how we're going to split our funds up. We just finished our public hearings on that, and have been taking comments on that priority right now. So that's basically how we decide how we're going to spend our funds.
Other questions? If not, thank you all very much for coming.